Okay guys, welcome back. 2005 Toyota Sequoia 4.7. This is I don't even know what the lesson is to be learned here. I'm sure we can discuss it and figure it out together. But I'll give you the quick story. This is a vehicle that is almost done. I did not film it along the way because I didn't think it was worth filming initially. But I think the story is worthwhile. Hence why I'm here. So, quick backstory. Owner of the vehicle, and I know the truck, I know the owner. I work on the whole family's vehicles. So, it's not a strange vehicle is what I'm getting to, right? He lives some ways away. His parents live down the street. He stops by one day. He says, I think I need a transmission. My transmission is slipping. I said, well, okay, obviously you're going to bring it in. Let me take a look at it. Let me verify the complaint. He says, all right. He said, well, worst case scenario, if it needs a transmission, how much? I price it up. I give him the number. The number is somewhat irrelevant. I said, let me know when you want to bring it in. We'll take a look at it. I don't hear from him. It goes out of my head. Just about 6 months later, he calls me up and he says, okay, I'd like to have the truck checked and do the transmission. I said, wow, you still driving around with it like that? He goes, no, I parked it. He said, when you told me how much and I realized I probably couldn't afford it at the time, I parked the truck. Not a huge deal. He said, but I can't get it started. I tried everything. I have to have it towed to you. He tows it down, and I promise this is relevant. He tows it down, and I have full power. It's not a battery issue. I put the key on, and I could see the prindle says it's in drive, but it's clearly in park. I give it a tug, step on the brake. I can hear the lock releasing, but I can't move the cable. I give it a pull and it kind of comes down into reverse, kind of comes into neutral, but the prindle don't move. I'm a little confused. I go to hit the key, nothing. I get it back into park. I says, it's clear, there's something wrong with the cable, there's something wrong with the detent switch, something. I says, I'm not even gonna, let's stop here. So I, further investigation, it turns out along with I have a transmission builder that I use, so we bring it over to his shop, and the cable's stuck, the detent switch is on the transmission is stuck, and the linkage right into the transmission is rusted solid. Wherever he had it must have been catching a wet breeze underneath and rusted it solid. Needs a cable, needs a detent switch, and we got to pull the pan down to get inside the unit. Truck's got 160,000 miles on it. Are we really going to pull the pan down, start pulling things apart, and not do a rebuild on it? We could create other problems if there's not already one. I talked to the customer. He says, no, he says, I know it needs a transmission. I just do it. Do the transmission, do the cable, do the detent switch. We do it all. Truck seems to run fine. There's a check engine light on. I didn't get a chance to even pre-check the truck in that fashion, so I don't know if it was on or not. I called him up. He said, yeah, that light was on. Let me check it real quick. It's for the secondary air injection. Not a big deal. I said, hey, you interested? You want to get this troubleshot? He goes, no, let me drive it around for a while. He says, when it comes time for inspection, I'll deal with it. I give him the truck. He calls me up. He says, I really wanted this to go faster than it is, so I apologize. He calls me up. He says, the truck is doing the same thing. Same thing as what? Here's my problem. Told you it was going somewhere. I never got to road test it before. I couldn't even get it. I couldn't even force it into drive from underneath. Let's say disconnect the cable and force it into drive to even try to drive it. It wasn't an option. He goes, it feels like it has no power. I'm thinking, I drove it. It was fine. I don't get it. No problem. Let me get it. I bring it. I get it. The truck falls flat on its face. Step on the throttle. Bah, like a clogged cat, bad mass airflow kind of feeling. light throttle, it'll get where it's got to go and it's fine, but you step on it, it just falls flat. I start troubleshooting it. Even Keith had stopped down one day when Steve was here and we played with it. He did something, he took it, he was playing while I was playing with something else. He says, truck's fine, I fixed it. So what'd you do? In the interim, we figure out what had happened. But the truck seems to run fine. I road tested, it runs fine. The light does come back on. Codes were cleared, the light comes back on for the secondary air injection. But we know about that. But the truck runs great. I give it back to him. He drives it around, he says, yeah, it runs great. Later that night, he goes to get up on the highway to go home. He says, on the highway, he does the same thing. He does it again. I says, now I'm like, what little hair I have left, I'm looking to pull it out. It takes him 2 weeks. He parks the truck again, but he gets it back here. I'm checking it out. All my numbers are fine. Volumetric efficiency, fuel trims, just like the first time. Everything I did the first, all my numbers are fine. I don't get it. As a goof, I reset the check engine light. Truck runs great. I start researching it. I come up with a list of, just to back up, by the way, my secondary air injection was a P0418 and a P2445. So P0418 and a P2445. I actually come up with a list, and I'll try to along the way insert some pictures so you guys can see them a little clearer instead of me just holding them up. But there is a fail-safe chart, a list of codes that will put the vehicle into some kind of fail-safe / limp mode. That's what it feels like it is. I go looking and these two codes are not on the list, although there are other codes from the secondary air injection that are on there. Here's where, don't try to think like an engineer, because that's where aneurysms come from. I said, well, there are three secondary air injection codes that will put it in limp mode, but apparently the 4 other codes that pertain to the secondary air injection will not. I find that hard to believe. I'm going with the concept, this thing's in a fail-safe mode because of the secondary air injection, which according to the Toyota paperwork, it's not supposed to. What I do come to find out is, you clear the code, the truck runs fine. Second trip, first trip the code will go pending. Second trip the light will come on. It's not until the third trip that the car goes into its fail-safe / limp mode, which is why I kept getting thrown for a loop. When I cleared it, it was fine. The light came back on, but it was still fine. It wasn't until I handed it back to him, trip 3, that's where I got hung. So all of this yapping and staring at me instead of watching me diag the car, I apologize, but I thought this was a valid walkthrough. I will tell you, let's turn this thing around. I will try to put a screenshot of this wiring diagram. It is not as complicated as it looks. There is a fuse which is in the main fuse box. There is a driver which is right here that drives the system. There is an air pump which sits down underneath the intake. Directly behind that sits an electronic valve, and back behind that there are 2 vacuum diverter valves which are controlled by 2 VSVs. One of them I have out right now, and the other one's right here. So basically the driver signals these 2 to open up, and it opens the 2 vacuum valves and allows the air to pump into the exhaust manifolds. That's the long and short of it. There's a pressure switch that's on the electronic valve. I think the way it works is the pump comes on, The pressure switch sees the pressure, acknowledges, okay, the pump's working, gives the thumbs up, go ahead and open the valve. It opens the valve and hits the 2 vacuum diverters. From there, it opens those and feeds left and right side. Why they need 2? I don't know. They could have done the job with 1, but more parts just to break. I go to troubleshoot it. I come in here. In fact, I'll show you this. It's not just a fuse. It is, they call it a fusible link. It's a 3-part fuse. The center fuse is a 50 amp. It is blown. It was blown. I guess it would have been neat if I recorded this other part. Let me back this up a little bit. I went ahead and I actually took the glass off of that fusible link, jumped it with a 50 amp, a regular 50 amp maxi fuse to bypass it with an amp clamp. I went down here and unplugged this top. You can't see it. There's 2 plugs on this, on the air injection driver. The top one is the feed for the pump. It is the feed from the fuse and then output to the pump. So I put my amp clamp on there and I jump the plug just to see if I can get the pump to run. I do it for a quick second. I hear nothing. My amperage shoots up to 70 amps. I disconnect before I blow the fuse. And at that point I determine, okay, the pump is locked up, and that's what blew the fuse. While I'm at it, I go over to the vacuum switching valves. Simple enough. I grab, this is supposed to be bolted again. I'm sorry, I do have this unbolted at the moment. I'll explain why. 2 valves here. This one's still here. This hose and this hose is the output to the vacuum diverter valves. I unplug them. I do a quick vacuum test to see if they can hold vacuum. Both of them are leaking. They work. I can hear them. I can hear the diaphragm going up and down, but they're both leaking. So I know I need a pump and at least 2 vacuum solenoids. The electric valve can be tested. The problem is it's not loud enough. Even if I activate it from the driver module on this side, there's not a guarantee I'm going to be able to hear it. So I didn't even bother. I figured, let me get it apart and then I'll test it. Took it apart, and lo and behold, it's also bad. So now we're into it for a pump. Keep in mind, this is all after we've done a transmission, a shift cable, and a detent switch. So I'm already stressing this whole job. I don't like calling the customer back. He's understanding. He realizes he shouldn't have parked the vehicle for 6 months. It is what it is. Air pump, the electronic valve, both vacuum diverters off the back. They are bolted to, there's a front crossover coolant pipe in here that goes from right to left head, and there's one in the back. The vacuum valves are bolted to the back side of it, so yes, the intake has got to come off, and then the crossover pipe's got to come out. It's not a terrible job, but when stuff is old, of course it brings with it some added issues. I get it all apart. I put it all back together. New gaskets. Put everything together. Am I forgetting anything? New fusible link. I will tell you there's a bulletin, and I'll try to put a insert in here somewhere, picture of it. There's a bulletin. There's a couple of bulletins on this. One of the earlier bulletins was to just replace, I don't remember, I think just the driver. Just at Toyota bulletin, launch a driver at it. You know, the little module. There was a later bulletin that basically said change everything. I kid you not. There's a whole kit. They want you to change everything. One shot. One part's bad, change it all. I'm not a big fan of that. In the end, I might have been on this job because it looks like we're doing it anyway. But I'm just, you know me and the other. If you know me, you know the other guys we associate with. You know, we're not big on parts cannon moves. It's just not the way to do things. And I wasn't about to launch the parts cannon at it. But as it turns out, it needed a lot of stuff. So I get it all back together. I'm not even gonna flip the camera around. I get it all back together. I start it up. Truck runs great. I road test it. Nice long road test. Truck runs great. I let it cool down. Next day I take it for a nice long road test. Beautiful. No check engine light. As a goof, I plug in my scanner, I check. There's a pending code. P1445, a code I have not had yet. It is a new code. It is for the secondary air injection. It is telling me that, I forget which bank, 2? Bank 2 diverter valve stuck closed. Circuit. They're not saying whether it's a vacuum circuit or electrical circuit. It's a circuit issue, but it's determining that the valve never opened. We're not done yet. That is when I come over to this valve. I take both of these. Now I did check them beforehand. I check them again. I disconnect both vacuum lines. I vacuum test them. They hold, and I can hear the valves are working. I verify I have vacuum coming into both valves. I unplug it. I apply my own. I apply vacuum. Let me do this another way. I apply vacuum to the top port. See if I can spin this sideways. I apply vacuum here. Make sure we're not leaking through. We're not. The switch holds vacuum. When I apply power and ground, it should pass the vacuum to the vacuum diverter. I apply power ground. Nothing happens. I give it the old tap, 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 and the vacuum goes. It's supposed to dump fast, but it doesn't. I do it again. Vacuum stuck. I tap it. It goes. So I know that is why my bank 2 is not opening, because my solenoid is stuck. I did test the other one. The other one tests fine. As soon as I put power to it, drops off, opens the valve. We're good to go. So, upside down. New valve is in the pocket. We're going to put the new valve in now. And hopefully get this thing out the door once and for all. Assuming that this fixes the issue. Which I'm sure it will. Unless something else creeps up. Unless we have, and I hate to even jinx it, but these drivers are notorious for failing. And talking it over with PJ from Voltage Drop and Keith. Keith was like, if you're not going to put the driver in it now, make sure you let the owner know that there's a chance it may go. Having been stressed out the way it was. And he's right. I don't disagree. But I'm sure this will fix this issue. The other solenoid looks okay, and I think we'll be alright to get this thing out the door now. So I just wanted to shoot this, I guess, as best as I could as a lesson. I'm not sure what the lesson is. I'm curious what everybody else thinks. How would you have handled it? How do you handle a vehicle comes in that you can't road test? It turns out, like I said, this thing, he thought it needed a transmission. It ended up needing a transmission, but not for the reasons he thought. Then it needed other issues. Then we have bad service information. Service information that, according to this list, that code shouldn't cause a limp mode or low power mode or whatever you want to call it. I'm also going to include a screenshot of what when I looked up this. I wanted to look up the code setting criteria for this 1445, which was that after that latest code. I mean, I knew what I needed to do, but I always like to look up code setting criteria. What is it looking for? What is it going to take to fix it? That kind of thing. What I found I thought was pretty funny. I'll try to put see if I can do this right. I'll try to put it over here. I don't even know if I know how to do that, but I'll try. And if it's not there, I'll put something else there. I'm not real good with this editing stuff. But I looked up the code setting criteria and they got that all wrong. I won't say where I got it from, but it was one of the pay for services. And their description was some kind of cam timing issue for a 1445. Apparently, whoever did the copy and paste thing, put it in the wrong spot, because that code has nothing to do with cam timing. They were saying bad cam sensor, bad cam phaser, bad. I'm reading this going, we're not even in the right ballpark. Something's wrong. It's just wrong information. So we're battling wrong information. We're battling a vehicle that got parked for 6 months and rusted. An owner that thought he needed a transmission. I don't know if that was originally his problem. I don't. Maybe he did have a transmission issue. I never got to drive it, so I don't know. So I'm curious what you guys think. How would you have handled it? Should I have done something different? I'm not sure what would have been the other route to take at the point where the transmission had to come down. Do we say, well, let's just pull the pan down and try to fix the linkage and put it back together and then take it back apart again if it does need a unit? You know, again, truck's got 160 on it. So I don't know if I forgot anything. If I did, I'll try to refilm it and fill it in somewhere. Like I said, I'm trying to do this in one shot. I'm a little loopy at the moment. I had a little procedure this morning. I'm still coming off anesthesia. So I'm keeping it to small jobs this afternoon. But nonetheless, looking forward to hearing from you. Again, thank you for your support. Please click the buttons, the subscribe, the like, and all the other cool stuff. Check out my Amazon store if you can. It does help a little bit. It's cool. So click through my Amazon store. What else? Stickers. You want any stickers? Let me know. Send me an email with an address. I'll send out stickers. No big deal. All right. And hope everybody's well. Hope you got to learn something from this. Hope it piqued your interest. Hope it didn't bore you to tears. If you got any negative comments, keep them to yourself. If you got anything constructive, I like to hear it. Hope everybody's okay, and we'll talk to you soon.